Welcome to Bite at a Time Books, where we read you your favorite classics one bite at a time. My name is Bree Carlile, and I love to read and wanted to share my passion with listeners like you. You can sign up for our newsletter at biteatatimebooks.com. You'll also find our new t-shirts in the shop, including podcast shirts and quote shirts from your favorite classic novels. Be sure to follow my show on your favorite podcast platform so you get all the new episodes. We're part of the Bite at a Time Books Productions Network. If you'd also like to hear what inspired your favorite classic author to write their novels, and what was going on in the world at the time, check out the Bite at a Time Books Behind the Story podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Today we'll be continuing Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Chapter 21. One should always begin by arresting the victims. At nightfall, Javert had posted his men and had gone into ambush himself between the trees of the Rue de la Barrière des Gobelins, which faced the Gorbeau house, on the other side of the boulevard. He had begun operations by opening his pockets and dropping into it the two young girls who were charged with keeping a watch on the approaches to the den. But he had only caged Azelma. As for Éponine, she was not at her post. She had disappeared, and he had not been able to seize her. Then Javert had made a point, and had bent his ear to waiting for the signal agreed upon. The comings and goings of the fiacres had greatly agitated him. At last, he had grown impatient, and sure that there was a nest there, sure of being in luck, having recognized many of the ruffians who had entered, he had finally decided to go upstairs without waiting for the pistol shot. It will be remembered that he had Marius's passkey. He had arrived just in the nick of time. The terrified ruffians flung themselves on the arms which they had abandoned in all the corners at the moment of flight. In less than a second, these 7 men, horrible to behold, had grouped themselves in an attitude of defense. One with his meat axe, another with his key, another with his bludgeon, the rest with shears, pincers, and hammers. Thénardier had his knife in his fist. The Thénardier woman snatched up an enormous paving stone, which lay in the angle of the window and served her daughters as an ottoman. Javert put on his hat again, and advanced a couple of paces into the room, with arms folded, his cane under one arm, his sword in its sheath.
"Halt there," said he. "You shall not go out by the window. You shall go through the door. It's less unhealthy. There are 7 of you, there are 15 of us. Don't let's fall to collaring each other like men of Auvergne."
Maigrenaille drew out a pistol which he had kept concealed under his blouse, and put it in Thénardier's hand, whispering in the latter's ear.
"It's Javert. I don't dare fire at that man, do you dare?" "Parbleu," replied Thénardier. "Well then, fire."
Thénardier took the pistol and aimed at Javert. Javert, who was only 3 paces from him, stared intently at him and contented himself with saying,
"Come now, don't fire. You'll miss fire."
Thénardier pulled the trigger. The pistol missed fire.
"Didn't I tell you so?"
ejaculated Javert. Maigrenaille flung his bludgeon at Javert's feet.
"You're the emperor of the fiends. I surrender." "And you?"
Javert asked the rest of the ruffians. They replied, "So do we." Javert began again calmly.
"That's right. That's good. I said so. You're nice fellows."
"I only ask one thing," said Maigrenaille, "and that is that I may not be denied tobacco while I'm in confinement."
"Granted,"
said Javert, and turning round and calling behind him,
"Come in now."
A squad of policemen, sword in hand, and agents armed with bludgeons and cudgels rushed in at Javert's summons. They pinioned the ruffians. This throng of men, sparely lighted by the single candle, filled the den with shadows.
"Handcuff them all,"
shouted Javert. "Come on," cried a voice which was not the voice of a man, but of which no one would ever have said it is a woman's voice. The Thénardier woman had entrenched herself in one of the angles of the window, and it was she who had just given vent to this roar. The policemen and agents recoiled. She had thrown off her shawl, but retained her bonnet. Her husband, who was crouching behind her, was almost hidden under the discarded shawl, and she was shielding him with her body as she elevated the paving stone above her head, with the gesture of a giantess on the point of hurling a rock. Beware, she shouted. All crowded back towards the corridor. A broad open space was cleared in the middle of the garret. The Thénardier woman cast a glance at the ruffians, who had allowed themselves to be pinioned, and muttered in hoarse and guttural accents, "The cowards!" Javert smiled, and advanced across the open space which the Thénardier was devouring with her eyes. "Don't come near me," she cried, "or I'll crush you."
"What a grenadier!"
ejaculated Javert.
"You've got a beard like a man, mother, but I have claws like a woman."
And he continued to advance. The Thénardier, disheveled and terrible, set her feet far apart, threw herself backwards, and hurled the paving stone at Javert's head. Javert ducked. The stone passed over him, struck the wall behind, knocked off a huge piece of plastering, and rebounding from angle to angle across the hovel, now luckily almost empty, rested at Javert's feet. At the same moment, Javert reached the Thénardier couple. One of his big hands descended on the woman's shoulder, the other on the husband's head.
"The handcuffs!"
he shouted. The policemen trooped in force, and in a few seconds Javert's order had been executed. The Thénardier female, overwhelmed, stared at her pinioned hands, and of those of her husband, who had dropped to the floor and exclaimed, weeping, "My daughters!"
"They're in the jug,"
said Javert. In the meanwhile, the agents had caught sight of the drunken man asleep behind the door and were shaking him. He awoke, stammering.
"Is it all over, Jondrette?" "Yes,"
replied Javert. The 6 pinioned ruffians were standing, and still preserved their spectral mien. All 3 besmeared with black, all 3 masked.
"Keep on your masks,"
said Javert. And passing them in review with a glance of Frederick II at a Potsdam parade, he said to the 3 chimney builders,
"Good day, Bigrenelle. Good day, Brujon. Good day, Dumilliards."
Then turning to the 3 masked men, he said to the man with the meat axe,
"Good day, Guillemer."
And to the man with the cudgel,
"Good day, Babet."
And to the ventriloquist,
"Your health, Claquesous."
At that moment, he caught sight of the ruffian's prisoner, who ever since the entrance of the police had not uttered a word, and had held his head down.
"Untie the gentleman," said Javert, "and let no one go out."
That said, he seated himself with sovereign dignity before the table, where the candle and the writing materials still remained, drew a stamped paper from his pocket, and began to prepare his report. When he had written the first lines, which are formulas that never vary, he raised his eyes.
"Let the gentleman whom these gentlemen bound step forward."
The policeman glanced round them.
"Well,"
said Javert,
"where is he?"
The prisoner of the ruffians, Monsieur Leblanc, Monsieur Urbain Faber, the father of Ursule or the Lark, had disappeared. The door was guarded, but the window was not. As soon as he had found himself released from his bonds, and while Javert was drawing up his report, he had taken advantage of confusion, the crowd, the darkness, and of a moment when the general attention was diverted from him to dash out of the window. An agent sprang to the opening and looked out. He saw no one outside. The rope ladder was still shaking.
"The devil!"
ejaculated Javert between his teeth.
"He must have been the most valuable of the lot."
Thank you for joining Bite at a Time Books today, while we read a bite of one of your favorite classics. Again, my name is Bree Carlile, and I hope you come back tomorrow for the next bite of Les Miserables. Don't forget, you can sign up for our newsletter at biteatatimebooks.com. And while you're there, check out our t-shirt shop. You can look in the show notes or on our website, biteatatimebooks.com, for the rest of the links for our show. We'd love to hear from you on social media. You can find us everywhere at Bite at a Time Books.